Welcome back to Fantasy Fest 2025. I am Ryan Wormeli alongside Andrew Erickson. We've got a ton of folks joining us throughout the stream. And right now is the legend himself, Andy Behrens. Andy, thank you so much for hopping on with us today.
Hey guys, it's great to be here. Don't think I didn't notice that you were trashing a couple of Iowa tight ends as I jumped on. That's noted. Hostile environment already.
I tried to give them the opportunity to talk them up. I was like, hey, I think these guys are undervalued, and they just wouldn't take the bait. So I tried for you, Andy, and they simply refused. We really appreciate you making the time. Like I said, you have got a new venture going on. So why don't you tell everybody where they can read you, where they can listen to you this season?
Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah, we're at the Deep Shot. It's me. It's Dalton Del Don. Just a couple of cast-offs from Big Fantasy, doing our own thing. All of our writing is going to live there. We're going to have some other projects there as well. And then I'm doing a premium podcast with Chris Harris of Harris Football. It's called The Yacht Club. Hope people check that out as well.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait to follow along, and I will certainly be reading and listening to that. And I know I don't need to sell it. Everybody's going to be really excited to check that out.
We say nice things about Iowa tight ends at this site. It's not the level of hostility that you just experienced from JJ. That was outrageous.
Yeah. Well, we will not be talking about tight ends on this segment. We're going to be talking about some running backs and wide receiver breakout picks here. This is one of the more fun segments to talk about because, breakout picks, like, it's sometimes hard to define, right? People can kind of blur the lines between a sleeper, a breakout, a league winner. But at the end of the day, these are going to be like good values that we think take a step forward and are going to be some of the most fun players that define the fantasy season, hopefully, if we get these picks right. So we've got one pick from each of you two at both running back and wide receiver. Then, like we did in the last segment, we'll leave a little more room for some Q&A at the end of this one as well. And then, as I reminded everybody last segment, also all of our 2025 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. Andy, let's start with you. Who is your breakout pick at running back, speaking of Iowa?
Oh yeah, I think you guys are really going to hate this because Kaleb Johnson has received some, I don't know, headwinds, negativity, pessimism in recent weeks. People concerned about pass protection. People concerned about Kenny Gainwell. That one really gets me. Listen, you can fool me a lot of different ways in fantasy. I can be tricked. I have a lot of vulnerabilities. But you can't trick me with Kenny Gainwell. That's just not going to happen. I don't think Kenny Gainwell is ultimately going to play ahead of Kaleb Johnson. Pittsburgh basically had a Kaleb Johnson shaped hole in the offense, and they filled it with Kaleb Johnson. All those zone carries last year that went to Najee Harris, prior seasons under Arthur Smith, that is just bread and butter stuff for Kaleb. It's what he did so well and so often at Iowa. He's coming off a pretty terrific preseason game. I know that he didn't play exactly when everybody wanted him to play, but man, he was really good. It was 50 yards on 11 carries. He looked really comfortable catching the ball, which I think was one of the biggest open questions about Kaleb, right? Because that's just not something that Iowa has ever asked of their running backs. Doesn't mean they can't do it, but we don't really know when they come into the league. That guy's forcing a bunch of missed tackles too in preseason play. Again, it's only preseason play against people who will not ultimately end up in the league. But you'd rather see a guy look this good than the alternative. It's all been pretty consistent with his collegiate tape too. Lots of bad angles that he's forcing. Plenty of instances in which he's shrugging off the first tackler. Like that's who he was in college. I just think people are doing a lot of overthinking on Kaleb. He was clearly drafted to take on a huge role in that Pittsburgh offense, and he's just a wonderful fit for it. The guy just led the Big Ten in rushing and in touchdowns while averaging over 6 yards per carry in an offense where he was literally the only weapon, literally the only thing you worried about. If you told me that Kaleb was routinely facing 11 in the box last year, I would believe it. It was a crazy environment in which he thrived.
Erickson, what do you see the ceiling for Kaleb Johnson as a rookie? Is he somebody that you think could be, like, I don't want to use the phrase league winner, but like a true breakout who really does impact fantasy leagues this season?
Don't sugarcoat it. Kaleb Johnson is going to be a league winner because I'm co-signing with Andy here because this is, you need to adjust the expectations with Kaleb Johnson. Again, he's still a third round pick, and we knew that there was things he had to work on in terms of pass production. And Mike Tomlin wasn't just going to give a 3rd-round rookie just, okay, well, here's the keys to the engine, like go off and be the RB1 of the offense. Mike Tomlin has reflected on Kaleb Johnson's how he's played in the preseason, continuing to praise his development and his growth, and that he's getting better and better and better. And yeah, maybe week 1 comes along and Jaylen Warren's playing more snaps than we'd like to see, or Kenneth Gainwell, but there's going to be 1 week where Kaleb Johnson's going to get 20 carries in a game, and he's going to look like an absolute freight train in the second half. And everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, like that's the guy, like that's what we were excited about to see. He's a volume runner. They said that when they drafted him. So you're not going to necessarily see it all come together in practices and in preseason where you're not getting a full complement of snaps from a Kaleb Johnson. So I am buying the dip on him as well for those that haven't been impressed with him so far. He's checking off all the boxes that I was looking for. And when it comes to these rookie running backs, like he's the one that you could see actually taking on a ton of volume outside of some of the guys drafted ahead of him that went in the first round. So I think that the vacated touches are there for him. And the minute that he got drafted to an Arthur Smith offense, I thought this is the perfect fit. And it reminded me of a lot of when Mike McDaniel drafted Devon Achane. Just perfect fit. Don't overthink it. The minute that this guy gets the keys to the engine in this offense, he's going to cook. So I'm very looking forward to drafting Kaleb Johnson.
I actually had the exact same thought, Erickson, about Achane, because our colleague Pat Fitzmaurice would always describe it as a hand-in-glove fit, and that's how I would describe Kaleb Johnson in the Pittsburgh offense. It's a hand-in-glove fit. It seems so obvious. Before we move off Johnson, Andy, I want to ask, like sometimes with breakouts, it's saying this guy is ranked where he should be, but I just like there's enough of a ceiling like chance here of him hitting that ceiling that I want to draft him. Do you think he should be ranked higher? Because in ECR, he's RB 27 right now. That's in half PPR scoring. Do you think that is too low and he should be higher? Or do you think that's an appropriate place to rank him? You just want to buy the upside case and take those swings at that ranking?
Yeah, this is where rankings really don't tell the full story, right? And you want to have a different way to express how you feel about a player. And if you go all in the ranks, maybe it appears a little bit too bullish. Maybe it feels a little bit reckless. It is not an accurate reflection of where I would actually draft him, because when I'm in a draft, I'm just taking shots, right? Like maybe not so much at the very top where you're thinking about floor a little bit more, but up and down your drafts, it's actually, I don't know. I mean, fantasy football is actually not, as it's most commonly played, not really a game of tiny edges. It is a game of taking big swings and, hitting on 3 or 4 things in your draft. And if you do that, that's how you win. Like individual players drive winning. And I think Kaleb is one of those guys where that whole Najee role is right there for him. He can coexist with Jaylen Warren, and it's fine. Most offenses don't just have a single workhorse running back. If he slides into those Najee Harris touches, it's going to be all systems go. He's got a shot at 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Andy, last year we did a show and you convinced me to rank Isaiah Pacheco in my top 5 running backs. I was hoping you were going to come with the same heat on Kaleb Johnson here. But of course,
I mean, listen, that should have gone well. There's an alternate reality in which that goes well and Pacheco stays healthy and he hits.
I was right there with you. Erickson, you messaged me this morning saying after last night, you had to change your running back pick here. So who do you have for us now?
Oh yeah, I'm going with Bill Kroskey-Merritt, running back for the Washington Commanders. Now, I felt like I was doing a disservice by not at least bringing him up on the show when we're talking about running back breakouts, because he's checking off every single box of that type of player that is going to drastically beat his ADP. And I think there's still an edge to anyone that's watching this right now. There's an opportunity for you to get him in your fantasy draft because the ADP is just not going to catch up to the riser that Jacory Croskey-Merritt is in most of your home leagues. So I want to make sure that you are pulling him up your draft board to make sure that you get him with one of your later round picks, because he's going to take the NFL by storm this year, I think. Brian Robinson, he's going to get traded. Like, it seems very convincing. Even watching the game last night, the broadcast, they're very convinced that he wasn't even at the stadium. Like, this is like legit. Like, they're kind of like, we're moving on from Brian Robinson. Like, he's not going to be part of our plans. And if they can't trade him, maybe he's a cut candidate. Again, he's in the final year of his contract. And this is why it's so hard to buy into running backs that are average. If you're not special at the running back position, teams will look to replace you and upgrade. And so far throughout camp, Kroskey-Merritt has looked like the explosive part that can be an upgrade over Brian Robinson, who's been fine. but now you're getting a running back that, okay, worst case scenario is Croskey-Merritt. Can he just be Ryan Robinson? Yeah, I think that's what the Commanders think, but now there's room for upside. And him being a 7th round rookie running back, it doesn't really describe, I think, what his actual talent level is, because he dealt with a lot of eligibility issues last year. He got screwed over by the NCAA, only allowing him to play in 1 game this past year at Arizona, which he actually looked really good in. But the year before at New Mexico, monster 2023 campaign. He was PFF's 4th highest graded running back in 2023, 33% dominator rating. And in the 1 game that he did play this year, 13 carries for 106 yards, and he broke a ton of tackles. And then the next time he got to play was in the Shrine Bowl. And you know who won Offensive MVP? Jacory Croskey-Merritt. So this guy's pretty good at football, but he just didn't get a chance to play, which is just such a disservice to him. So I think that it's his revenge tour here as a rookie for the Washington Commanders. Again, the 7th round draft capital does not reflect how good of a talent he is. And I liked him a lot as a prospect. And I thought that, okay, maybe if this guy gets some opportunities, he can maybe usurp Brian Robinson. But it seems like the team is already making that decision. And they're ready to move forward with Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Again, not necessarily a 3-down workhorse. Austin Eckler will still be involved, especially on the passing down side of things. But in terms of early downs, who could see red zone opportunities, Jacory Croskey-Merritt looks like the guy. And he should be available in all of your drafts, because the ADP, I don't think, is going to quite catch up to where you can actually get him.
He's jumped up in the rankings to RB70 in the half PPR rankings. I'm curious to see where the ADP does land. We're actually launching a new feature. It's not available yet, but called Real-Time ADP with Fantasy Pros. Well, that will be really helpful for situations like this, to see where he is going in the most recent drafts when stuff like this happens. Andy, what is the correct stance on Bill Croskey-Merritt? I don't know if it's a hot take or a measured take, but what is the correct approach here, given like there's this huge swell of hype and excitement surrounding him, but he still is somebody who's like going pretty late in drafts, and like he had like 2 good runs yesterday. So like, is it more of a measured take, or are you kind of jumping on the bandwagon?
Yeah, I do want to say, to the point about him still being really cheap in drafts, I was in an auction 2 nights ago, and this was like just exclusively industry people who write about this for a living. Everybody knows who Croskey-Merritt is, and we have for a long time. It's no, like, he didn't sneak up on anybody in here. I had a little bit of leverage at the end of the auction. I got him for $2. Like that's where you can still get him. I'm not totally sure why he's available at that price this late into the preseason, but it's actually true. I'm surprised to hear you say that he's in the 70s at the position. That seems wild to me. I mean, they're not even just telegraph. They're telling us where this situation is headed. And Brian Robinson is headed out of town, and it's going to be Croskey-Merritt's job for the most part. Again, it's not going to be, I agree with everything that's already been said. I don't think he's going to be 90% of the touches. Obviously, Austin Eckler is going to continue to be Austin Eckler, but this is going to be a pretty beefy role in an offense that I think we're all pretty excited about. So I don't really see any reason why he shouldn't already be ranked in the 30s, perhaps already ranked ahead of Brian Robinson. I think that's totally reasonable right now.
That number will definitely keep going up. It rose 13 spots in the last 2 days, though. So it already has taken a big leap, and there's a lot more room to go there. And to your point, still somewhat cheap. I want to let everybody know that right after Fantasy Fest wraps, head over to twitch.tv/fantasypros to catch the Fantasy Fest after party. The Welsh and Scott Bogman will be doing a PPR mock draft. Hang out, talk fantasy, and get your questions answered in real time. Starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, so don't miss that over on Twitch. Kind of the after party, put a cap on Fantasy Fest 2025. Let's go to the wide receivers here. Andy, who do you have for us?
Yeah, for me, this is Ricky Pearsall, and it's not like he's sneaking up on anybody, but if we're just looking for a breakout candidate, this man is already the Niners' #1 wide receiver entering the season. He is one of the few healthy members of the receiving corps as we enter the year. He also, #1, he was whatever. It's just preseason. He looked great the other day. It was 42 yards on 3 catches, in perfect sync with Brock Purdy. He's had a pretty normal offseason after having the least normal offseason of all time as a rookie, right? So that is a huge difference. Just being in the program in a normal way makes a huge difference. We also got, we got proof of concept from him in the final 2 games last year when he looked like an absolute star. 14 catches on 18 targets, 210 yards, couple of touchdowns. This is just one of those cases where, a lot of the time a wide receiver will come into the league and they got a little bit of size and they test like a superhero at the combine, but when they get on the field, we don't really see it. Well, I mean, Pearsall has a 42-inch vertical and, he's got 4.4 speed, and you see it. Like, you can feel it every time he touches the ball. Every touch looks like it could end in the end zone, right? I just think he's been spectacular. We're in a big play offense. I think everybody knows that historically, Kyle Shanahan's teams, man, those quarterbacks produce some pretty serious yards per attempt. We're getting a lot of big plays here. They scheme up some fun stuff, and a lot of that is going to go to Pearsall. Brandon Ayuk, probably not going to see him for a month and a half, maybe more. This is kind of Pearsall's receiving room, and I think he's ready to roll.
I was surprised. So his expert consensus ranking is wide receiver 37. That's not that surprising to me. What is surprising is he's the type of player that I anticipate his ADP being that he goes higher than what his ranking is. It's actually lower. His ADP is wide receiver 42. That did surprise me, Andy. Where are you? Like, are you reaching to take Pearsall to make sure, like, planting your flag, I want to get this guy on my team? Are you trying to get him right around where his ranking is? Is there a round you could assign him to say, if I can wait till this round and get him, I'm really happy?
Yeah, it's funny. This is another one where I'm kind of a fraud in the rankings, because wherever I have him, I think of him as I think of him as a wide receiver 2 right now. And if you want to call him a low end wide receiver 2, that's fine. But he is quite obviously the Niners' number 1 receiver. So I start looking at him when we get down to that. And I'm not saying that I'm taking him ahead of these guys, but like when we get into that group and we're talking about Marvin Harrison and we're looking at Cortland Sutton and we're looking at DJ Moore, and those are the names. That's not a bad spot for me to pivot to running back for a second and then come right back with Ricky Pearsall, who, again, I think he's given us 1,100 yards this year. I think these are very solid wide receiver 2 numbers ahead of us.
And the nice thing, Erickson, is, like Andy just said, you don't have to draft him right after Marvin Harrison Jr. goes. You can wait and then get him later and feel like you're still getting a guy who's going to produce a similar amount.
Yeah, I think that the way that Andy described Ricky Pearsall, it just, to me, he seems like one of the easiest clicks you can make in fantasy football. Like, even if he doesn't hit his ceiling outcome where he is going over 1,100 yards, you're getting him wide receiver 40. That's where we're betting on a former first round pick in a great offensive ecosystem attached to a quarterback that we are confident in. Like, we're confident that Brock Purdy can support fantasy viable weapons. A lot of times in this range with the receivers, we're like, I don't know, Chris Olave, like, who's the Saints quarterback? Like, you're concerned about that, but it's one of these things where we feel great about the quarterback being able to support Ricky Pearsall. And the thing that I can't get out of my mind, and just going off to his offseason and how different it is from last year, 2 years ago, entering the 2023 season, the training camp reports for Brandon Ayuk were off the charts. They were, this guy is so dialed in and ready to go. And Ayuk had a monster year and then got paid by the 49ers. And that's really been the drumbeat for Ricky Pearsall this year, because, he's actually getting able to get reps with the starting quarterback with Brock Purdy. So to me, the Pearsall bet this year is kind of similar to JSN last year, where his first round pick doesn't necessarily hit. He also entered the season, he was a little bit banged up. I think it's the exact same kind of bet, because he's a super talented player attached to a great quarterback and a great offense with opportunities. Like, Juwan Jennings is not, Debo is gone. Ayuk is hurt. So I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad that Andy put him on the list, because if he didn't, I was going to.
Erickson, you picked somebody at wide receiver that I have been talking about a lot. We actually just mentioned in the last segment as well that I think is like one of the players of the Fantasy Pros team this year, because we're all really high on him. And so are a lot of people. It's not just a Fantasy Pros thing, but who do you have for us?
Tetairoa McMillan, or T-Mac, just not Ted. Just don't call him Ted. T-Mac or Tetairoa, full name, or T-Mac. For the Carolina Panthers, I think that he's just being ranked too low. I think that he can be this year's Malik Neighbors. That's kind of the range that he's going in, round 4, round 5, where kind of overshadowed by someone else in his draft class. And I kind of think that McMillan's just been overshadowed a little bit because of Travis Hunter going 2nd overall, this wide receiver cornerback hybrid. When you look at McMillan and his body of work at the college level, it's awesome. Like, he has elite college production. He was a top 10 NFL draft pick, and he lands in a perfect spot for him to see a boatload of targets. There's no alpha on the Carolina Panthers offense. Adam Thielen is 35 years old. Jalen Coker was undrafted free agent who we really liked. But the things that I take away from what I've seen from Bryce Young the last 2 years, yes, it's been a lot of up and down, we've seen glimpses of improvement for Bryce Young, which I think paints a picture of him even being better in year 3. But the Canales offense has been able to support fantasy weapons. Like we've been able to use guys from Carolina, most notably Adam Thielen. The last 2 seasons, Thielen has been a guy that we've been able to play in fantasy football. So now you're replacing Thielen at 35 years old with an ultra productive, uber talented rookie wide receiver that looks everything like an alpha. And you're dropping him into a spot where he should see a clear path to targets. I think that he has a top 12 ceiling easily. And when you just look at players that are drafted inside the top 10, what they do on average over the last 4 seasons, 80 catches, over 1,000 yards, over 6 touchdowns. And that puts T-Mac, just based on averages, as a top 10 receiver. That puts him in the wide receiver 2 territory. So I think right now you're getting him at his floor where his ceiling could be unlocked if Young does take another step in this offense, and if McMillan is as advertised as a talent coming out of Arizona.
Yeah, Erickson, you stole the comp that I have been making, and it's not in terms of how good a player he is. I don't think he is as good as Malik Neighbors, but it's the same thing I said a year ago for Neighbors during drafts, where I was like, this is the cheapest he is going to be for the next 8 to 10 years of his career in drafts, barring injury. Like, he is going to be going higher than this a year from now, so I want to get the guy while he's cheap. I feel the same way about Tetairoa McMillan. I love the talent. I love the fit. Andy, like, Bryce Young doesn't need to take a step forward for Tetairoa to be good. I keep wanting to call him Ted. For Tetairoa McMillan to be good, if Bryce Young is simply just what he was in the second half last year, that is more than good enough, in my opinion, to support a talent and a real stylistic fit like McMillan is. Where do you have him ranked, and what do you think about him as a breakout candidate?
Man, you took the talking point right out of my mouth. Like, what if Bryce Young isn't better? What if he's just who he was in the last 6 games? That was awesome. That was great. That was a guy who could support a fully functional passing game on a team that couldn't, the defense couldn't stop anybody, right? Like, that's a sneaky good fantasy situation. Also, the Panthers just had a screaming need for exactly what he is, right? Like, let's drop a ready to go X receiver into that system and let's roll. I mean, there's 120, 130, I don't know, 135 targets for him easy this year, as long as he stays healthy. So I've seen him go in the 3rd round fairly recently. I'm not saying that he's going to do that in a draft full of normals, right? But like, I've seen him go in the 3rd round, and I didn't really bat an eye. It felt like the right range. It felt like the right group of receivers for him to go around, just when you think in terms of the likely workload that's out there. I will say, I think, he got a little bit of a bump in people's eyes off of a highlight catch in the preseason in an otherwise kind of spotty game. But set that aside, like, he's just such a perfect fit for what the Panthers actually needed.
I do wonder where he will kind of end up going by the end of this month in the normals leagues, as you would put it. Just because, like, there is like a Panther stink just from them being so bad the last couple of years. Again, we don't necessarily see it that way, given what Bryce Young was at the end of last season and Dave Canales and all that stuff. But I wonder if he will kind of have a depressed value just in terms of where he's going in kind of more casual home leagues. Because
I'll just say the Panthers were the best kind of bad at the end of last season, right? Like, everything going to overtime, the defense can't stop anybody, and nobody can stop Bryce Young. Like, if he's that guy this year, even if he goes on a heater for half the season, this is going to be a monster year for McMillan.
Debro is waiting in the room to join us next segment. I can see the pain on his face that he's not able to hop in and talk about Tetairoa McMillan with us. So we'll move on from him so we don't, torture him anymore. We've got a couple of minutes here for some Q&A. So we'll start getting some questions up here. Who's a better handcuff, Braylon Allen or Trey Benson? Andy, what do you think about that one?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm not really. I want to give Trey Benson credit for looking a lot better in the second half last year than I thought he looked early. I thought he was, maybe the game was a little quick for him early in the season. I didn't think he looked great, and I thought he looked fine by the second half of the year. I'd probably just go with Braylon Allen, who I at least believe has a role to start the year, because you know the deal with handcuffs. For the most part, like, your handcuff running backs are your first drops of the season. You're not going to hold on to them for 6 weeks. Everybody plans on holding on to them for 6 weeks. Nobody does it. As soon as there's a buzzy waiver ad, you go ahead and drop that guy. So Allen is at least somebody who is a little bit playable to start the year. I'm not sure Benson is going to be that.
Erickson, do you see it the same?
I guess I'm looking at it more from a pure handcuff perspective, not really evaluating the standalone value. I would agree that Allen has probably more standalone value, but if we wake up tomorrow, Breece Hall and James Conner are both gone from their respective offenses, I want Trey Benson on my team. Like, that's who I think could be a true RB1, whereas Braylon Allen, I think, is still going to have to, well, now they're just going to put Isaiah Davis in the Breece Hall role, and then it's just going to be more of a committee where Benson, I think that he would get the workload for Arizona.
Question here on Calvin Ridley, who doesn't really fit for breakout receivers, but he is somebody that I think is worth talking about because I see him as a real value this year. Question from Ben. Do you think Ridley has 1,200 yard, 10 touchdown upside truly, or is his hype being overblown, Erickson?
No, because his hype cannot get higher than it was when he first came back from suspension with the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was when his hype was being way overblown. So right now, I mean, he's still wide receiver 30. I don't think he's actually ever finished that low when he's played a full season. So I think he's being drafted at his floor. And we've talked about it, Worm. Besides week 1 at Denver, where he's probably going to do nothing, the remaining 16 weeks are going to be very good for Calvin Ridley, seeing double-digit targets from Cam Ward.
Yeah, his wide receiver finish in half PPR in his career, 20, 25, 4, the season where he missed time, 17 and 27. So he's been 27 at worst, and now he gets this number 1 overall pick quarterback. Andy, what do you think about Ridley this season?
Yeah, no, I think this questioner actually kind of pegs the upside correctly. Like, I can't imagine him going, delivering a season that's any better than 1,210, but that's probably the upside. And again, I would agree that the floor for Ridley is probably a little bit higher than his current ADP.
How about a dynasty question here, Andy? With a new offensive coordinator and potential increase of Jameson Williams, is now the right time to pivot from Amon-Ra St. Brown in dynasty, or would that be a panic move?
I don't think it's a panic move. I just don't think that you want to be the type of dynasty manager that is always thinking, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Like, you can go ahead and try to win the league right now. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is the guy that I would want to do that with. I still think he's in line for triple digit catches. Like, this is going to be a good year. I think we've pretty firmly seen that the Lions offense can support more than one startable, viable fantasy receiver.
Erickson?
I think with Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think I would probably not try to project his downfall. And I think I'd just kind of just ride the wave and just be like, hey, if he retires on my roster, so be it. He was a third round rookie pick when I took him. I'll just ride him off into the sun. I mean, some guys I think it's just better to do that with. Just ride him off to the sunset.
Final question here for this segment. Are you guys dropping Achane at all with a calf injury, or are you not concerned, Erickson?
I am dropping him in the rankings. I think that the round 2 crop of players it's too good. Honestly, to just kind of totally ignore. Like, that's the big thing. It's like, well, am I really going to take Achane over Derrick Henry? Like, I can't do that. Like, not when he has his calf injury. Miami's team, or they're a team that could totally become a dumpster fire. Yeah, so he is moving down for me.
Andy?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to frame it. If you look at the neighborhood in which he's going, the other guys are just so good. There's not that much separation there. Also, can I just say, while we're touching on the Miami backfield, I don't think there's a player in the preseason that's impressed me more than Ollie Gordon relative to expectations. I think that guy's gonna have a role.
I will say too, who we used to play with Tua at the college level, Mr. Brian Robinson.
Okay, that's an interesting point there. Yeah, there's nothing Erickson loves more than finding this coach used to coach this guy like 8 years ago.
Because Brian Robinson went to Alabama, he's played with a lot of guys in the NFL.
Andy, before we get out of here, for anybody who came up, joined the segment late, remind everybody one more time what you got going on with Dalton.
Oh, yeah, really appreciate that. Dalton, Deldon, and I have started the Deep Shot. That's where you can find all of our writing, all of our analysis, the rankings, all of it, all season long.
2 of the best in the business. Support them, not only because it's good to support people, but also because they'll help you win your league. So go check out the Deep Shot, everybody. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today.